Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. All right. Angle bisector. Now, you already know what a bisector is because we did segment bisectors. Remember, if you have a segment and you have some line bisecting it, that means it cuts it in half. Cuts it into two congruent parts. So today we're dealing with the same thing. The only difference is now we're talking about angles and not segments. Sorry, I meant to circle the word, not cross it out. So, an angle bisector is a ray that cuts an angle into two congruent parts. Now, it must be a ray for this reason. Let's say we have this angle, and this angle equals 88 degrees. It looks pretty close to 90. And I want to bisect it. Well, it would have to start here, and if it starts at an endpoint and goes on forever, that's my ray, and it would cut it in half into 44 degrees and 44 degrees. So that's all an angle bisector is. Again, we've kind of been working with this stuff already. Okay, BD bisects ABC. So that means BD is my bisector, and it's bisecting this whole angle ABC. So what it means when it bisects is that it's making these two pieces congruent. Alright, so what I like to do as soon as I see this bisects, as soon as I see this statement, I like to go ahead and label my diagram that these two pieces are congruent. Because now when I label my parts, it helps me identify them a little easier. So we know ABD is 6x plus 3, and DBC is 8x minus 7. We've already labeled them congruent, so we know that they're equal. We're not sure what they measure yet, but that's what we're going to find out. So 6x plus 3 is equal to 8x minus 7. We have our equation set up. Let's go ahead and solve. So subtract 6x. 3 equals 2x minus 7. Go ahead and add 7. And you get 2x equals 10. Divide by 2. And we know x is 5. Alright. Now, we've answered the first part of the question. Find x. We found a value for x. Now it wants to know the measure of ABD. So ABD. So we want to find this measure here. So we know the measure of angle ABD equals 6 times x, which we know is 5, plus 3. Oh, I didn't mean for that second parenthesis. So 6 times 5 is 30, plus 3. The measure of angle ABD is 33 degrees. Okay, so we know that this angle is 33. Now, because it's a bisector, we also know this angle is 33, and we know the whole angle is 66 degrees. Now, I know this diagram looks like an obtuse angle, but our algebra supports our answer. I just copied the diagram, and I use the same diagram in every example, so that's why it's not completely accurate when it's drawn. But using what we did in our algebra, this matches up, and our work shows that it's correct. Alright, so moving to example 2. Again, identify your information. BD bisects ABC. So that's my bisector. Let's label my congruent parts. Once your congruent parts are labeled, go ahead and put in your pieces. ABC. So now we're talking about this whole big angle is 10x plus 48. And DBC, this little part, is 15x minus 6. Now this puts us in a little different predicament than we had in the first one. We know these are congruent, so if this is 15x minus 6, we know this must be 15x minus 6. So there's really two ways to attack this problem. You can take 15x minus 6 plus 15x minus 6, or if you didn't write that in, you recognize that they're the same, so you could double 15x minus 6 and set it equal to the whole thing, 10x plus 48. Alright, so you can either add it to itself or double it. It's the same thing. Either way, you get a result of 30x minus 12 equals 10x plus 48. And from here, we can solve. Subtract 10x. So I get 20x minus 12 equals 48. Add 12 to both sides. So 20x is 60, divide by 20, and x is 3. Alright, so we found x. Now it wants us to find the measure of ABC. So it wants the measure of the whole thing. So the measure of angle ABC, well, we know ABC is 10x plus 48, and we now know x is 3. So we just substitute that value in. We get 30 plus 48. So the measure of angle ABC is 78 degrees. Alright, not so bad, right? Well, if that's too easy for you, let's challenge you a little bit. Okay, example 3. BD bisects ABC. So again, BD is my bisector, so label your congruent parts. Again, it just makes it easier later. ABD is x squared plus 10. Oh no, the dreaded x squared. DBC is 7x. Alright, we know they're congruent, so let's go ahead and set them equal. Now, I picked this example because some of us are still struggling when we have an x squared. Remember, whenever you see an x squared, that's a quadratic equation. In order to solve a quadratic equation, we have to be equal to 0. So some of the mistakes we've been making is we're trying to solve for this x and dividing by 7 and doing all this crazy stuff. But whenever you see that x squared, we have to get our equation equal to 0. We can't solve until it's equal to 0. So x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. So once you have it set up and equal to 0, now we can apply our factoring. Some of you like to draw your box method. That's fine. But ultimately, we're going to get the same answer. We need to find two numbers that multiply to positive 10 and add to negative 7. Those two numbers are x minus 5 and x minus 2. We apply our zero product property to get x equals 5 and x equals positive 2. Now, notice we have two solutions, so you have to test them both. Sometimes none of them work because they produce negative values in our angles. Sometimes only one of them works, and sometimes both of them work, so we always have to take the time to check them. So let's start with x equals 5. So when x is 5, let's examine angle DBC because that's just the easiest one. So I have 7 times x, which would be 7 times 5, gives me 35 degrees. So that worked out well. That checks out. Now let's go ahead and try angle ABD to see if it checks out as well. So x squared, so 5 squared, plus 10 is 25, plus 10 is 35 degrees. That works out. They're both 35 degrees. So x equals 5 is an acceptable answer. Now let's go ahead and try x equals 2. So 7 times 2 is 14. And here we would go 2 squared plus 10, because x squared is my 2, which is also 14. So if it was 14 and 14, that checks out. So that's my answer as well. So it's asking for angle ABC. So when x is 5, the measure of angle ABC is, well, 35 and 35 would give me an ABC of 70 degrees. But when x is 2, we knew we had 14 and 14, which would give me 28 degrees. So actually with this problem, we have two correct solutions. When x is 5, ABC is 70, and when x is 2, ABC is 28. Alright, hope that all made sense. If it didn't, make sure you write down your questions and bring them to class tomorrow, and we'll get them answered. Alright, thanks.